2 races left in the regular season. So many drivers have made this season a what could have been, from Truex to Blaney to Larson. Let's talk about it. This episode of Above the Yellow Line is presented by Shaq Gear. Hey race fans, it's Taylor, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. I cannot believe we are headed into Martinsville this next weekend. We'll have a preview show coming out on Wednesday to talk about that and some more NASCAR news. But for now, let's talk about the Dixie Vodka 400. Let's go right into our results. Capturing win number 3 of the season, finally a Homestead win. We're talking about Kyle Larson winning this weekend at the Dixie Vodka 400. Something we're going to have to look out for at Phoenix, as Kyle Larson is still eligible for the Owners' Championship. He's just not eligible for the Drivers' Championship. Of course, this all happens because Kurt Busch forfeited his medical waiver going into the playoffs, as he is still out and will be out the rest of the season due to concussion-like symptoms. Davey Siegel pointed out that this is the first time in Cup Series history with this format that this has happened. We think this is the case. Someone else on Twitter also pointed out, wouldn't it be wild if Kyle Larson won the Owners' Championship and Ryan Blaney, let's say for example, none of the Championship 4 finish in first place. None of them win the race at Phoenix, and Ryan Blaney is in the Championship 4, finishes in second, wins the championship without winning a race the entire season. Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue on NASCAR Twitter and just in general in NASCAR? I feel like having those two happen at Phoenix would be the cherry on top of the sundae, the icing on top of the cake, whatever you call it, to end this 2022 season. Would be wild. So lots to look out for at Phoenix for sure, but Kyle Larson was your winner this weekend. Then in second place, we had Ross Chastain. Third place, AJ Allmendinger. He is my Shaq Gear MVP of the week. The guy absolutely crushed it. He was racing in the top 10, top 5 like all day long, was going for a win at the end there, just could not get up to Kyle Larson in time as he was battling with Chastain for that second position. But Khalid is going to be a powerhouse next year. I want to put them on the same track that Trackhouse Racing is on this year, and probably they're going to surprise us a little bit. I think we're going to get a win or two from that organization next year with him and Justin Haley. So we'll have to keep our eyes out for Khalid, see what they can do. But if AJ Allmendinger is racing this good part-time in that ride right now, as he's still full-time in Xfinity, we're going to see great things when he goes full-time in 2023. So AJ Allmendinger, your Shaq Gear MVP of the week, finishing in the 3rd position. Then Austin Dillon in 4th, Brad Keselowski in 5th, his best finish of the season. Then in 6th, we have Martin Truex Jr., and this is one we're going to have to talk about. All right, so let's talk about this Martin Truex Jr. deal. He was in a great position to win. He had a great car. When he got it into clean air, he looked like he could win the race, quite honestly. I know Kyle Larson was really good even in dirty air and when he was clear. Obviously, Kyle Larson had like an 8-second, 10-second lead on the field pretty much the whole time he was in the lead. But with Martin Truex Jr. doing one of the final pit stops of the race, he ended up spinning out on pit road. A lot of people thought, though, it looked like Kyle Larson nudged him to spin, but when you play back the tapes a little bit, look at it, it almost seems like Martin Truex Jr. was missing his pit box. He said that it was hard to see where his pit box was because of the glare on his windshield and just kind of the dirt and everything on the windshield. So he said part of it was to blame on himself. He also puts part blame, or equal blame, I should say, on Kyle Larson for not checking up. But obviously, when you're in a line going down pit road, I don't blame either of them on this situation. Like I said, the glare is part to blame, but also when you're going down pit road in a line and one person checks up way too late and tries to go into their pit box, things are going to happen. Chaos is going to happen. So I don't think this was intentional. I know a lot of people on social media were upset because they thought this was intentional, but I think this was just an error. And of course, when there's errors, there's going to be prices to pay. Not saying it's okay though, but also there was a lot of late notice. Things could have been worse. We saw some pit road issues on Sunday that could have ended in worst case scenarios, but unfortunately for Martin Truex Jr., this took him out of contention to win, which is just a shame, but he was able to fight back to get that position. Pretty wild stuff. Speaking of what could have been, Denny Hamlin did not have the car to win on Sunday. Of course, we know Homestead to be a very good track for him. Martinsville coming up was also a good track for him, but he just did not have the equipment, which I was pretty surprised about. Moving on to the 8th position, we have Kevin Harvick, 9th, Kyle Busch, and 10th, Daniel Suarez. Looking at the rest of your playoff contenders, 11th was Christopher Bell, 12th, William Byron, who had the car to win. He was leading most of the race early on, and then he and Kyle Larson were flopping back and forth. Going into stage 3, he had a bad pit stop, maybe just the wrong adjustments, and he just started fading really fast, was then not a race contending winner. Very unfortunate. I thought he was going to win it. Of course, won the race that we went to at Homestead last year. Going into Martinsville, he was the last guy to win that race too. So hopefully this is not a sign of what's to come for William Byron. We're going to look at the points a little bit later, but William Byron finishing in the 12th position. 14th, we had Chase Elliott, and 17th, Ryan Blaney. Another guy, for what could have been, he was doing so well. The pattern that we see with Ryan Blaney is he's great in stage 1, great in stage 2. Something happens in stage 3, whether it's crew, himself, other people's messes, and he's just not able to finish the races out. They talked about this on the broadcast. I've talked about this before with you guys on the show. So very unfortunate for Ryan Blaney. This was a self-issue. I think he missed a shift going off of pit road, and then he spun. There was a caution because I feel like NASCAR was afraid he was going to wash up on the track as he spun, which I agree with the caution. I think that was valid. Very, very unfortunate for Ryan Blaney. Again, we're going to talk about the point standings, how this affected him, but he's going to have to be flawless at Martinsville. Lots of drivers are able to put themselves into the championship four under a certain situation where you're under pressure and you have no option but to win. Ryan Blaney's not necessarily in a must-win yet, but obviously getting a win would secure your spot into the championship for next week. So, Ryan Blaney not having the day that he should have had, unfortunately. In the 18th position, we had Joey Logano. Then I want to transition to our guys that finished this race but are not playoff contenders, one of those being John Hunter Nemechek in the 27th position. If you don't know, he was filling in for Bubba Wallace after Wallace was suspended by NASCAR following the Las Vegas Motor Speedway incident. We're not going to talk about that anymore. We're just going to talk about John Hunter Nemechek because, very important, he is the future of Toyota, in my opinion. After everyone's been moving around a little bit, he is the only one pretty secure at the Toyota camp. I would like to see him in Cup full-time at some point again because he raced pretty well. He was in the 4th position holding his own for a lot of the first stage. Then unfortunately, he spun out and wasn't able to get back to that position, just wasn't able to make his way through the field with the equipment he had maybe that weekend, some of the adjustments. Also, this being his first time riding in the Gen 7 car for an entire race or just at all. So very impressed by what I saw by him. He was actually outpacing Ty Gibbs most of the day until this point. So very impressed by John Hunter Nemechek this weekend as he filled in for Bubba Wallace. Then in the 25th position, Noah Gragson. Why am I talking about Noah? Well, he won the race at Homestead in the Xfinity Series on Saturday. He captured, I think, his 16th stage win of the season, which is also crazy. But the reason I want to talk about this here is health. This season for the Cup Series, it has been all about driver health, taking your health first. For Noah Gragson, we saw him be very winded after the Xfinity race. He even said on air, like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, was climbing the fence after the race, but really kind of, for lack of better words, half-assed it because he was exhausted. Clearly, duh, but when we go into the Cup race afterwards, the AMR safety team was called to his attention when the race was over. Don't know any more about that, how he is, what he's doing, but I feel like he's mentioned before. I mean, obviously, he's seen the issues with throwing up after the Xfinity Series races and all the things like that, but he mentioned at some point during a press conference a few weeks ago that he was going to seek out medical advice, probably following the season, to just get some answers about why he's been getting sick after races, but sooner rather than later. Noah Gragson, for me, is a future champion in the Cup Series, and I feel like you have the best chance to be a future champion when your health is 100%. I don't want to talk about driver's health. I don't want to speculate anything, but I hope he's able to get some answers. I hope he's able to get healthy enough and be healthy so he's able to run these races. But obviously, Xfinity and Cup back-to-back the past few weekends filling in for Alex Bowman has been, probably would be a lot on the body, I would imagine. So hoping Noah Gragson is doing better today, is resting up, and hopefully seeking some medical advice during the off-season because I want to see him win. Honestly, in the Cup Series, I think that'd be great for the sport, great for the fans, and also great for Petty GMS as he goes there in 2023. So Noah Gragson finishing in the 25th position. Then if we look back at our results, we have guys that did not finish this race. Tyler Reddick in the 35th position being one of those. He ripped the wall all race long. Stage 3 with less than 30 to go. He caused one of the final cautions, spinning out and killing the car. Unfortunately for one of the guys who I thought was going to win the race and had a really good chance to, of course, Homestead being one of his best tracks, did not finish this race. Most importantly, though, looking at a playoff driver that didn't finish this race, someone I think I jinxed going into the weekend because I thought he had a decent chance given his Xfinity stats at this track, Chase Briscoe. He brought out the caution with a few to go on stage 2, made contact with the wall with his car, and it hurt one of the control arms. With this part of the car, you cannot fix it on pit road. You have to go to the garage to fix that. However, he was on the DVP clock. If you go to the garage, you kind of forfeit and you're out of the race. There was too much damage to that car, and unfortunately for Chase Briscoe, they headed to the garage, were out of the race. Clearly dejected, but he handled the interview like a pro, is now in a must-win situation going into Martinsville. With that being said, let's look at our points standings right now, starting with the above the line point standings. I somehow won again this week, and I have 87 points. Dom, however, is in the lead with 90 points. Based on all of the point standings right now, it looks like Dom, Joseph, and I are going for the ATYL championship, as Adam and Brandon have 78 points and Rob has 73 points. Now looking at our playoff grid, Joey Logano of course is locked in, so we're not going to look at his point standings too closely until we go to Phoenix. But the only real things to note here is that Hamlin and Byron flip spots. Hamlin is now -5 to the good, Byron is +5. And though Blaney is still below the cutoff line, he has advanced himself to P6 in points, while Bell is P7, and Briscoe is last in 8th. As I said earlier, Briscoe was in a must-win situation, and I think, according to the math, I think Bell is too. Don't quote me on that, though, but I think probably needs to win to get into Phoenix, all things considered. Looking at the guys outside the playoff fight, though, the guys 9th and 10th in points, things shake up slightly. We got to focus on those guys, too, obviously, as their points still matter at the end of the season. Austin Dillon moves from 13th in points to 11th. He jumped his position after a great top 10 finish this weekend and moves Reddick and Cindric down. All I gotta say is with the points this close above the cutoff line though, it's gonna be interesting in Martinsville, but let's now go to our race rating above or below the yellow line, talking about how we like the Dixie Vodka 400. Starting with our Twitter poll, here's what you all had to say. Roughly 25% of you said this was a great race. A majority, 34-ish% said good. 31% said okay, and 9-ish% said bad. If we're rounding up, it's 10%. On YouTube, the results look pretty much the same. 25% said great, 42% said good, 21% said this race was okay, and 12% said bad. I also want to make sure I read a comment from Adam Lucas, our ATYL crew member. Also had a birthday last weekend at this point, so happy late birthday to him and Dom Joseph. Adam said, quote, "Homestead is a track like no other and a special one at that. We were gifted an interesting show that had very intense racing when shown. The one thing that really hurt my overall view of this race was shifting in the turns. It kills the racing. I give this race a 69 out of 100, making it above the yellow line." I gotta say I agree with Adam here, and my thoughts, and I think we shared some of the thoughts in the comments on Twitter and on YouTube, is that the last 20 laps, though they were fantastic and I was on the edge of my seat, doesn't make up for the rest of the race. I say this pretty much every time because we see a lot of great racing in the last 20 laps for a lot of these races, and then the first 1 and 2 stages are not the best. I will say this was not a bad Homestead race by any means. I thought it was pretty decent, but I think compared to what we've seen in the Gen 6 cars compared to the Gen 7, I think the racing might have been just slightly better in the Gen 6 car, but I do not think the Gen 7 car has killed the racing at all at Homestead. Like I said, it was decent. I was nervous with the Xfinity race. In that race, they had a lot of tires go down. I was nervous that would be the case for Cup. It was not. We also saw a lot of great passing in the Cup series. It was like nobody was stuck for position. All the lanes seemed to work at the track, which was fantastic. I was nervous with the Gen 7 car if maybe some lanes weren't going to be valuable to drivers as they were, but whatever Blaney wanted to do, which is why I love Homestead, you were able to make it work, which I appreciate. I will say more comments that I saw on Twitter and YouTube was that the leader got strung out, the field got strung out, the 8+ lead that Larson had was kind of boring. I will agree. I mean, finishing a race in dominant fashion, we've seen that before. But overall, all this to say, this race was not bad by any means. It was not my favorite though, but I'm going to give this race a 70%, making it above the yellow line. So Adam and I are pretty on par with our ratings here. Overall, what did you think of the race at Homestead? Let me know in the comments below, and with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. In case you missed it, on Friday we talked to Ryan Vargas. He joined us on the live stream that we always host on Friday nights or Thursday nights. So if you missed that conversation, make sure you check it out. He talked about his career, the struggle he faced. He also teased some things that he's working on right now. So make sure to listen to that conversation. We greatly appreciated his time. We had a great time with him. So make sure to check that out. Also, October is dwindling to a close, but this month is Dysautonomia Awareness Month. I made a video about the illness, how it impacts myself and many others. So to spread awareness and to learn more about that, make sure to check out that video as well. Also, if you want to check out more from us at Above the Yellow Line and TobyChristie.com, we are all over social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so make sure to check those out. Also on podcasting platforms. You can also find our great partner, Shaq iGear, on social media platforms as well. A major thank you to them for supporting ATYL and TobyChristie.com. They also have a nice promo code for you, Mamba34, to get 20% off your order of Shaq iGear glasses. During the off-season, I am definitely ordering myself a pair. You can find all of these linked in the description below, but before you check those out, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family, and guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Above the Yellow Line, and until next time, I'll see ya.